Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Kelley, for being here and for all of the work that SBA does. It's my understanding that SBA's argued that no funding remains to continue to approve EIDL loan modifications or previously denied applications. But in drafting the bipartisan infrastructure bill, Congress very clearly intended that SBA use transfer authority granted by that law to reallocate funds from targeted EIDL grant program to the EIDL loan program so that businesses who are eligible for that assistance would be able to receive it. Now, in the past, SBA has used that authority. Why was the decision made in this case not to use that authority again?
Mm-hmm. So as we've indicated to the committee, we did use that authority, for example, to process applications that were received on or before May 6th cutoff deadline. So we used both cancellations, which I think Chairman Cardin referenced, as well as funds that we moved in coordination with OMB into that fund. There's no question that communication from center-level personnel on an individual basis about funding being exhausted was confusing. However, when we speak to the inventory that we're talking about today, the 41,000, there aren't any instances that would be approved in obligated funds. Those files have been looked at. There has been communication to those borrowers about what was missing, what was insufficient, and in 2/3 of the cases, it is a tax-related issue. So at this point, we would not move funds because we don't see the inventory of demand. And again, the reason that's the case is 92% of that population has had a loan since 2020. And as of April of 2021, with the average increase being 200,000, they could seek a loan increase, and many did. But only 20% of those eligible for an increase ever responded over the course of 15, 16 months, roughly. So I understand, again, and I want to keep reiterating this, I understand why they are frustrated with the outcome, but in terms of the SBA's responsiveness to their petition for an increase, we have given them multiple, in some cases, reconsiderations or appeals, and we are not going to be able to get to yes on their individual file.
I appreciate the effort. I beg to differ on a list of applications that we have worked with our district office on. And while there are some, I don't want to use the word questions, but there are some disparities, but they are in at least one case as simple as an email address that was different. So I guess you haven't convinced me that, and while I recognize that there are some cases that for various reasons, human error don't get reviewed in the same way that we would all like. I'm still concerned that we have businesses out there that qualify that are not being acknowledged by SBA. So I don't know how to resolve some of those cases, but I do think it's a concern, and it's an ongoing concern. And as Senator Rosen talked about trust, I think that is a real issue that many of our small businesses still have at this point. I want to ask you about an issue that is not directly related to EIDL, but it's one that concerns me a great deal because I think the district offices that SBA has around the country are really important. I've lived through recession in New Hampshire where the only thing that kept our small businesses afloat was the SBA and the work of the district offices. And particularly during the pandemic, they were really important. And I'm very concerned because am hearing that there are some at SBA who would prefer to see a smaller footprint in the district offices, who would like to see more power consolidated in the Washington, and that data that we've seen shows that there is a marked drop in operating budgets for some district offices, including in New Hampshire. Even as some of the other programs that help our small businesses are being phased out, to have a further reduction in the ability of our district offices to help small businesses, I think doesn't accomplish the goal that we all share. So can I ask you if you support the work that's being done by SBA's district offices, and will you commit to resist efforts to decrease staffing and operating budgets as long as Congress appropriates sufficient funding for salaries and expenses overall?
Well, first, yes, I enjoy working with the district offices. I had 5 years during the Obama administration where I traveled quite a bit more to those district offices. I understand their value at the point of sale. And one of the things that we've done, for example, in the restaurant revitalization program, was we integrated 100 district office employees directly into the decisioning process as a response to some of the shortcomings that were identified, for example, in COVID EIDL previously at that moment. In addition, as I mentioned, for COVID EIDL, one of the things that we worked with the field on was getting them access to the data regarding COVID EIDL files so that they could assist borrowers directly. So there's absolutely a place for district office folks to help us succeed on the mission. As to the second part of your statement, I think it was yes, and I think what you're saying is a budget is about prioritizing choices, and you were suggesting that the SBA would have its funding to do its full suite of things, and quite obviously then the district office should be funded as it needs to be. Those decisions obviously are above my pay grade, but I think everyone, and certainly Administrator Guzman, to your question in her hearing this spring, I think indicated support for the field office.
Well, she did, and I have had a chance to raise that with her, but yet we don't see a change in terms of the information that we've been getting with respect to how the money is being distributed, and the fact is that those district offices are still being told they have to reduce their operating budget significantly. And I think that's a concern, as I said.
My understanding on this particular issue is that, and so these guys are about to jump out of the seats. I don't understand I know there's appropriations, but there's an appropriations committee, and what has been related to the agency is that these things are going to be sorted out as the process moves forward. So that's not a very informed answer, but what I took that to mean in relation to prioritization is that there's an understanding that there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of need across the SBA footprint given the balance of what we have to attack. So,
well, thank you. As an appropriator, I'm going to be watching this very carefully. And I don't appreciate having a budget submitted that is being done with the idea that we're going to cut this area because we know Congress is going to put that back so that we can fund something else. I would hope that in the budget process we would all be as honest as we can about what the priorities are and what we should be funding. So thank you. I appreciate your answers.